Hello EFD squad and welcome back to Transfer Review, where me and Pat put silly season underneath the microscope. We're like the Dick and Dom of the transfer window.
I never watched Dick and Dom.
Are you Dick or Dom?
I don't know, probably Dom. Just looking at you.
Well, apparently they're DJs now, according to Zach Jelab's
What?
Twitter
What kind of
feed.
music do they play?
And one of them's just like facing the crowd and giving it the...
Imagine if you found out like the chain
token
smokers
selfie.
or something were like Dick and Dom. Like, because they all seem like
I mean, that's an awful lot of bleeping for a first section, but we've just been talking about Shaw and Hobbs, and it's really got Pato fired up.
Yeah.
Talking of fired up...
I could beat Vin Diesel in a fight, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like he's imploded in his own skin at this point, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So
He's all larynx. He's got nothing else going on. Just growl.
A lot of water
growl
retention.
at me.
A lot of water retention.
Yeah, that's true actually. I reckon he eats so much salt. Like, if Vin Diesel went for a run, he'd just deflate like a like a balloon.
If you licked him,
Whoa.
100% salt.
Whoa.
Like one of those big... Right, anyway.
He's so unattractive.
Let's do Coutinho to Bayern Munich, because that went really lateral.
Yeah, Philippe. Yeah. Felipe Coutinho. Anyway, obviously the Premier League transfer window has closed, which means that Barcelona can't really entertain hopes of getting a huge deal for Felipe Coutinho, as Arsenal and Spurs are now out of the picture, unless a very desperate Bayern Munich decide that they're going to try and take the Brazilian off them. And Mundo Deportivo report that apparently talks have taken place between Blaugrana representatives and Bayern Munich ones over a possible loan move, which seems to be something they're doing now. I guess the move falling through for Sane. It doesn't seem like they can get Ousmane Dembele. Now they're just loading up
Which is a shame,
on...
because that would be a banging transfer.
Yeah, but now they're just loading up on kind of loan signings who can do a job. So they've got in Perisic, which I hate. Coutinho, on a slightly different level to Perisic. He's currently the 5th choice Barcelona forward, so you can understand why he'd go. He's behind Messi, Suarez, Griezmann, Ousmane Dembele, while he can play in the midfield as well. And maybe that would work a little bit better with Frenkie de Jong there to cover for him. I still don't quite see it. So I think that having obviously won the Copa America this summer, he hasn't had much of a pre-season.
Yes.
He probably is feeling a little bit left out at Barca, and maybe a new club, a change of scene wouldn't be the worst thing. Now, obviously, Bayern Munich do not want to commit a huge amount of money to the forward, and Barcelona seem to be willing to waive a loan fee so long as Bayern are willing to pay the entirety of Coutinho's wage, given that he earns about 11 million euros a year. So that would make him Bayern's 4th highest paid player behind Neuer, Müller and Lewandowski. They are not getting a lot of value for money there.
Muller is... I like Muller, but 11 million? That's almost $1 million per goal involvement at this point.
What about Neuer? What about Neuer? Neuer's getting $1 million for every goal he lets in that he shouldn't.
But
Neuer's rubbish now.
I almost back him to come back this season after, awful down.
Well, I mean, they've got a great defence in front of them, but they don't really have any attack, do
Yeah.
they? So, I mean, I think also it kind of depends whether Barcelona can use Coutinho to get Neymar, because if that's a possibility, they'll obviously do that. I don't think that Bayern, except for Alaba, which was rumoured earlier in the summer, I don't think there's anyone that Barcelona would want off Bayern. So I think that Bayern might actually have to wait until the last week of the window to see what happens here.
I mean, so far, the biggest victors of the window in the Bundesliga have been Borussia Dortmund. It's so clear where Bayern needed to shop around, obviously with Robin and Ribéry departing. I'm getting bored of kind of going over this dynamic now. But Bayern ended up strengthening their defence. Yes, they brought in some brilliant personnel, Pavard, Lucas Hernandez. However, their defence was statistically the strongest in the league last campaign, so they've strengthened where it was a little bit unnecessary. I'm not saying I don't like those signings, but all of their thinking should have been in the forward areas.
Yes.
And I do feel like Coutinho is a last-ditch attempt to sign an elite player to occupy one of those positions, because Perisic isn't in that band. Perisic is a stopgap.
But if Dybala's available, and Sarri was kind of talking that up, do you not go for Dybala over Coutinho? Because I think I do, just because I want a permanent deal, and he can be the long-term heir to Lewandowski, and he can play with Lewandowski in the short. Like, that seems to me, he can play on the right, he can play as a 10, he can play as a forward. That seems to be a much more sensible move than Coutinho.
Well, that's such an anomaly, isn't it? That whole scenario, Dybala leaving Juventus, because clearly he doesn't want to go, but he doesn't really back himself to start, 30 plus games in a Sarri system. Sarri's not really valuing it at at current, so it is very perplexing. Let's go back to the whole Coutinho situation at Bayern, because he would be a welcome addition to that squad. Muller turns 30 next month. He's facing increased scrutiny because of his output. He does add a lot to the team in terms of what? Maybe more intangible qualities. Yeah, leadership, sense of humour. He is a funny guy, lovely guy. One of the first people that I interviewed on Football Daily. Other options include Serge Gnabry, who was, of course, their player of the season last year. He turns 24, so really coming into his prime, can probably replicate that output last season, no problem. Yeah. But is he a player that's going to spearhead them to the Champions League, which they crave almost as much as Juventus at this point? Maybe not. And yeah, I mean, I've got Perisic down here. That was kind of confirmed, wasn't it? You know,
at time of
recording, it's not quite been, but it looks like they're going to get him over the line. Alphonso Davies got a decent amount of minutes, given it was his first kind of campaign last year. He's probably going to be butted into the side. He's about 12. So Coutinho has that blend of experience and quality, but I mean, that's dipped, hasn't it, in seasons gone by, owing to sort of, I mean, a very productive first 6 months at Barcelona and sort of nothing really sizable after. So, I mean, 3.9 shots, 2.9 key passes and 2.8 dribbles in his last 6 months at Anfield. That is elite output. But just 2 shots, 0.9 key passes and 1.5 dribbles in the last campaign at the Camp Nou. I mean, that is peripheral figures.
Well, that's one of those things, isn't it? It's like when you're certain players, when they go to a bigger club, their numbers pop because they're getting better service or whatever. But when you're the guy who has the ball all the time, whenever you want it, which is what he was at Liverpool, he was the guy who had the ball whenever he wanted it. And then you go to Barcelona, where everyone wants the ball, and also it's always going to Messi. Then suddenly you can't really do anything. Like he's not going to turn into a goal scorer, like suddenly like a striker. So I mean, he's starved of the possession he needs to do everything he's good at.
Yeah, and his numbers are reflective of that. 7 goal contributions last term, which is his lowest return since that 10-11 season at Inter Milan. I mean, I love him. He's a brilliant little player. He needs to be getting minutes again. I would happily, I'd sanction this move if I was Rummenigge. What are you saying?
Nah.
No?
Bin.
What do you guys think? Vote in the poll above. Bayern fans and, just European football enthusiasts. Would you like to see this? Vote in the poll above. Let's move on.
Next up, we have Napoli, who continue an absolutely horrible summer, according to Marca.
Little donkeys.
Yeah, got that. That's good. Should have been a smaller noise, though. So, embarrassing for you. Marca say that they missed out on James Rodriguez, and now as a result, they're turning all their attentions to Hirving Lozano. Now, at the beginning of the summer, it was, we're going to get James Rodriguez and Lozano and Tierney and a bunch of other guys, maybe Nicolas Pepe, and now it's turned into, I guess we'll just get Hirving Lozano.
We're going to sell Hysaj to Spurs?
Oh, yeah.
That's what's happening now.
It's not terribly exciting, but anyway, the 24-year-old Mexican could be on his way from PSV after the Dutch side were knocked out in the Champions League qualifiers. Now, he's got a €42 million asking price. The Partenope apparently willing to pay that, but they're currently negotiating over image rights, which have really been... Those are one of, how net spend was like the phrase of a couple of summers ago? This year is image rights. Yeah.
How much would yours be worth?
Image rights? Untold amounts. Absolutely untold amounts. Anyway, a meeting has been set up between Napoli Chiefs and Mino Raiola, who is the agent of Lozano. Now, do you know why Hirving Lozano's nickname is Chucky?
Something to do with jumping out under the bed.
Yeah, right, whatever, let's just move on. Anyway, came off injured during PSV season opener against Ardo at the weekend, but it's apparently just a dead leg, and it looks like the transfer will go ahead. If it does happen, he'll be the most expensive Mexican footballer of all time, surpassing Raul Jimenez's €37 million permanent move to Wolves this summer.
Beefy.
Yeah, and he'd become Napoli's most expensive signing too, edging out the 38 million euros they paid for Gonzalo Higuain in 2013.
Very unwilling to partake in the sort of transfer madness a lot of the time, aren't they? De Laurentiis, of course. Saying that, he did value Koulibaly at 250 million after Harry Maguire went for 85, which I respect.
There is still a rumour as well
proportionally, it's probably fairly accurate.
There is still a rumour that they want Icardi as well. Because there was the rumour, they were going to sell Milik to Betis, and then they were going to go and get Icardi. And there was a part of me that was like, pure chaos.
Icardi with the ultras at Napoli in southern Italy.
Yeah, he would get killed. Within 2 years, he would be
combustible.
Within 2 years, he'd be murdered. Anyway, Lozano's going to sign a contract till 2024, 70k a week, bonuses on top. I think this one's basically done.
Yeah, good little, Bunsen burner, good little earner. While you were talking there, I was kind of contemplating, is this a move that Bayern should be making? And then again, I went back to the kind of Dybala scenario that you presented. That would probably be a better option if you could get him for twice that amount. And then I was thinking, if you're going to go in for a winger or a wide player from the Eredivisie for around that price mark, again, why not just slap 20 million on it and try and get Ziyech again for Bayern. Or even for Napoli, I think I'd prefer that move to Lozano. But Lozano's fine, isn't he? Broke onto the scene in the 2018 World Cup, of course scored against Germany. We were very much hyping him up this time last year, and subsequently have nothing really new to say about him because he had an identical season last year to the one before.
And he's in the Netherlands.
So
maybe
that
he's good,
season,
maybe he isn't.
Yeah,
who knows?
That season when he broke through, 17 goals scored from out wide, 8 assisted, named in the Eredivisie Team of the Year. That was his debut campaign, and he matched the output this season, 18-19, exactamundo. But they still finished 3 points behind Ajax, so didn't really have much to show for it in the end. Goal contribution every 96 minutes though over those 2 seasons, so he is starting to approach that territory where it's like, maybe he is better than the Eredivisie, maybe he is a kind of not so much of a gamble as signings or players of yesteryear. Pretty versatile too, so in his 59 Eredivisie appearances, this is probably the most interesting thing I could dig up on him. 32 appearances on the right, 24 on the left, and he's deputised down the middle a handful of times. So he does give you that tactical versatility all the way along the forward line, which a lot of top clubs, would appreciate at Curran, wouldn't they? But it is clear he likes to play on the left, he likes to cut in, doesn't he, on his favoured right foot. Also possesses that ability to kind of be a more traditional winger, get to the byline. I'm thinking Antonio Valencia. Every time I say byline, I think of Antonio Valencia.
Interesting.
Just can't help myself. But he will bring some kind of much-needed youth to Carlo Ancelotti's side.
Okay.
So Dries Mertens and Callahan turn 32 pretty soon. Lozano can come in for either of them in that preferred in those positions, and I would prefer that he comes in for Callahan because the fans have been trying to hound Callahan out of the club for the last 18 months. I think he's their equivalent of a Thomas Muller.
But he's actually amazing.
Callahan, yeah, I mean, what a defensive forward.
But also 10 goals, 10 assists, like routinely. His goal output and assist output is mental. So getting in a replacement for him in the long term makes sense. And you do think, okay, I have my reservations about Lozano, but Lozano and Fabian Ruiz are a pretty exciting future of that club.
I'm not convinced. I don't know if this takes Napoli to the next level. I'm just thinking, does this help them challenge for the Serie A title? And it's a bit bittersweet for those fans. Like you said, all the targets they went in for at the start of the campaign felt like the right sort of moves. James Rodriguez would have been a significant move. Kieran Tierney would have been able to kind of facilitate, that play down the left that has seen them thrive in the last couple of years. I don't know what's happened to Gulam. Has he been the same player post-injury? Not sure. You'd have to let us know in the comments below.
They're trying to bin Mario Rui as well and couldn't.
So maybe not. How do we think this Lozano transfer is going to pan out? Let's move on to our final kind of mainstream transfer before presenter picks. It's Alexis Sanchez to Roma. Spoiler alert.
Yes, the Telegraph say that Alexis Sanchez could be on his way to Roma as part of a loan deal. Now, the transfer window in Italy doesn't shut until the 2nd of December, so they do have plenty of time to close that deal. Now, I think this would leave United a little bit thin after the departure of Lukaku, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has said that he does expect the Chilean to stay at Old Trafford. So I'm not really sure. Is that a negotiating position, or does he truly see Sanchez as depth along the front line? It's hard to say. I wouldn't be surprised if Sanchez got some minutes if he ended up staying this season, because who is playing on the right wing for them?
I mean, it feels like it would have been Lukaku or Sanchez that departed this window, right? Both of them feels ridiculous.
Well, also, I mean, Wan-Bissaka can't play right wing, right back, and defensive midfield all at the same time. He's pretty good in DM at the weekend, as well as playing right back. He's actually 4 or 5 weeks. This is Alexis Sanchez. He's actually 4 or 5 weeks behind the rest of the squad in preparation because of the Copa America, of course. He's only played 65 minutes of football since coming back, and that was in a friendly against Blackburn's under-23s.
Yeah, I played in that.
Ooh.
I played in that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, how were you?
Yeah, good.
Where'd you play?
Right back.
Yeah? Good, put in a good performance?
I did. And I dressed up as a dog, and Alexis... No, anyway.
Wowza.
Let's move on.
Yeah, and speaking of dogs, look at the state of United's front line. Martial, Rashford, Lingard, Daniel James, and then Mason Greenwood. Now, Mason Greenwood might be great, but he's 17. Daniel James is probably not great. He's 21. Lingard's a nice player to have in the midfield because he can do a bunch of different roles, but I would not really class him as a forward. So I don't know. I would keep Sanchez, but I don't know, 500k a week. That is an insane contract, and if you can palm that off on Roma, which you what am I saying actually? There's no way Roma can pay that. Roma are going to pay about 50 grand of that. What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, it'd have to be very favourable terms, wouldn't it, in order to get him in to the eternal city, let's say. I think if the window was still open, if English teams had another couple of weeks like their European counterparts, then fine. Get a player who has been out of form off the books, another sizable wage or chunk of wages to kind of remove along with Romelu Lukaku's, and then go, balls to the walls for well, I mean, they already burnt bridges with the bottler, didn't they? Someone else. But that's not the case. And like you said, they're going to need to rotate players. You can't rely on sort of Mason Greenwood and Daniel James putting up kind of significant minutes in their breakout campaigns. I mean, if they do, it's a bonus, right? But you don't plan like that. That isn't strategy. I mean, Sanchez, pretty torrid time. Do we need to say this at this point, since joining from Arsenal? Scoring just 5 goals in 45 matches in all competitions. His stats have taken an absolute beating in that time too. So his last 6 months at Arsenal, where despite having a few kind of injury woes, he was still great. 3.6 shots, 2.7 key passes, 2.1 dribbles. Last season with United was 0.9 shots, 1.1 key passes and 0.7 dribbles per game. Now that might be... Those numbers might get a little bit of a boost if you did it on a per 90 basis, but he's kind of getting minutes as and when, isn't he? He did seem a little bit like his former self at the Copa America, though, as Chile finished 2 shots a game, 1.7 key passes, 2.7 dribbles, which is nice to see. Netting twice and assisting once. He also scored the decisive penalty in that shootout against Colombia. And Roma... I think United will be doing Roma a real favour here because their forward line is even thinner. So Dzeko is 34 now, had a down year. I mean, Roma had a down year in that department anyway, but they've got Cengiz under, they've got Schick, they let El Shawari go to China, who was their top goal scorer with 11. They have Justin Kluivert. So they have good talent, but not necessarily guaranteed output at this point. And no out-and-out striker. So that's a pretty frightening prospect, considering all the teams around them, barring what maybe Lazio. Lazio have signed from the Serie A, haven't they? A couple of signings kind of in between the 10 and 15 million pound price mark. But every other club who has competed for Champions League football has strengthened around them.
Yeah, I worry about Roma.
And this kind of spells, not great news for Roma. What are your thoughts?
If they can get him on like a small portion of his wages, I'm actually in favour of this. I think Alexis Sanchez still has quite a lot of talent in him.
Yeah,
I think
miles on the clock still.
Yeah, and I think Serie A is quite helpful to older players, and the fact they've got those young guys means that it's not like just them being silly and hoping they can get the best out of him. It's like, let's see if he can bridge this year between, Justin Kluivert being a prospect and him being a regular contributor. So. Yeah. But they need this, and they need Fonseca to really, really hit the ground running, because you look at the sides around them, and Milan have upgraded manager, Inter have massively upgraded manager, Napoli are obviously making some moves. So I worry a little bit for Roma, I've got to say.
Same. I mean, I think they finished, AC finished behind 1 point behind Inter Milan, didn't they? And Roma are even further down the pecking order. So they, even before all this happened, they had big ground to make up. I can see them, finishing outside the top 4, even 5 once again. What about you, Serie A fans? Where can you see Roma finishing? Let us know in the comments below. Before we move on then, if you're not subscribed to Euro Football Daily, then please hit that button as displayed on screen right now, as well as the notification bell to never miss another episode of Transfer Review. Moving on. Last but not least then, it is presenter picks, and I was on duty this week and I've gone for Ronnie Lopez to Sevilla. Now apparently, the Monaco player was in Spain yesterday, so the move could be finalised today. It's gone a little bit under the radar, which is kind of why I wanted to bring it to your attention, so to speak. So, still only 23. The move would mean that Wissam Ben Yedder goes in the other direction. This is being kind of touted as a bit of a player swap. Now, Ben Yedder's release clause was 40 mil, so that's kind of the value of the deal, and probably a fair value for Lopez. He'd be the Andalusian club's 11th signing, and they've made some very smart signings. So De Boer's come in, Luc de Jong's come in, our kind of FD favourite, Joan Jordan came in, one of Eibar's standout players last term. And Ronnie Lopez has been consistently, very good in France, despite having a down year last year, where he only made 4 goal contributions. I think expected goals and assists actually put him closer to 9.
Yeah.
His XG, his expected goals and assists per 90 was around 0.41, which was only bested by Falcao in the Monaco side, as they obviously kind of, limped across the line. They just staved off relegation, didn't they? So still probably the second most productive attacker in that Monaco side. And of course, the season before, we were raving about him after he put up 15 goals and 5 assists from attacking midfield. And at his time in Monaco, he's kind of consistently put in over 2 key passes a game, had over 2 shots, admittedly one of them is from outside the box, and kind of beat his man around 1.6, 1.7 times a game with a 50% success rate. So a really productive forward, like I said, who's kind of approaching his peak years. You feel there's more to get out of this kid, and swapping him for a forward who's entering his twilight feels like good business for Sevilla, right?
Yeah, I think this is a great move. Like, I love Ben Yedder. I think Ben Yedder's amazing, but he is 29, I think, now. And yeah, I just think this is really sensible. Like, Ronnie Lopez, 0.4 expected goals and assists per 90 last season is decent. And that's actually where it was as well the season before the season before, like where it was before he had that big jump up. But some injuries. His last season at Lille, it was like 0.44, and then it was like 0.58, like in his first season at Monaco. So I think that he'll maintain that level at worst, and at best he's probably got quite a bit of upside because he hasn't got a huge number of minutes under his belt, and you'd have thought that coming back from injury would have hurt him as well, and Monaco were obviously dysfunctional, so you could easily see him potentially turning into a really, really good player. So with Sarabia gone, I think that this is very, very sensible from Sevilla. The only question is whether they can get everyone in that squad to gel in time.
Yeah, because they've now had kind of successive windows where they've, 2 or 3 successive windows where they've overhauled the squad.
Yeah, a lot of
so it's about finding that consistency. Just to give you a point of reference, I mean, Christian Eriksen last season, his expected goals and assists were around 0.42. So sort of, in similar territory, though he's kind of much more of a goal getter than a creator in that sense.
I think he's going to be like a goal-scoring wide forward ultimately.
Yeah. So a very sound signing, and I look forward to seeing how they gel at Sevilla, like Pat said. Guys, who has cropped up on your radar? Who do you think deserves a little bit more coverage? Let us know on Twitter and on Instagram. Twitter handles will be on screen now. Pat, what else should the guys watch if they've made it through, 20 minutes of pure liquid gold?
Head over to Squad Goals and check out Squad Goals. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel as well. Drop us a like, drop us a comment below, and hit the notification bell to never miss a video. And we'll see you next time.